Right.
All right. It's 1 o'clock, even though the clock says 12:52. With a quorum of the board present, I would like to call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Jacobs.
Present.
Commissioner Swathwood.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson.
Present.
Commissioner Hogan is here as well. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Excellent. So, the consent agenda is made up of routine daily items that require board action, but do not appear to have significant impact. Any item may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion vote by any board member. Would any items like to be pulled? Alrighty. The items are approval of board meeting minutes from March, payroll checks, $107,675.16 for March 25. Maintenance and operations checks, $28,885 to $28,943, totaling $881,702.77 for March of 25. Approval of passenger facility charge totaling $72,514.30 for March of 25, and financial reports from March of 25. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Why, thank you. Commissioner Jacobs.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Thompson. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. Which brings us to the director's report.
Yes, exciting stuff. Thank you very much. So a lot of things to mention this month. We did see record parking in March, about $136,000, which is a substantial increase over, about 24% over last year, but easily a record month for us, so that's great. We got that despite flat passenger growth, which is kind of a mystery. Know why, but for whatever reason, a lot of people parked in the hourly parking for long lengths of time. It's become kind of a thing this spring, so I'm not sure why that is. But we are seeing some increases from our parking rate increase too. But really good to see healthy parking. Passenger volume basically flat. I think we were down a total of 1%. As we were looking kind of through the calendar last year, I think Easter was a little closer to March last year, so some of that traffic probably leaked into March. Not sure when the school breaks were, I can't quite remember last year, but chances are good that probably, if I remember right, there was a short break in March and a longer break in April last year. So I think probably that's why we're down a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how April does. It seems like the parking lot's been really full, so. We're falling a little bit off pace for record volume. We would need about 4.5% growth the remaining months of the year, which isn't undoable. It's just in June we won't have the second Alaska flight. We'll likely be out of seats in June. So doubt we'll make it. If we had a real bang up April, we might get there. So there's still potential, but we're still chasing after 2014, a decade and a year ago. Which is disappointing, and I know we'd all like to see growth, but as we've said many times, we generate about 3.1, 3.2 boardings per populace, and until the populace piece moves, it's unlikely we'll see much of an increase in boardings. So, but nonetheless, strong month. If you look through the financials, revenue is right on target. We're a little bit ahead of the target, about 2%, due to some parking increases. But I think we'll end the year probably about right. I think we'll probably be right at the budget revenue number. We're still well under in expenses, but we still have some massive repair costs that are bubbling up. Just in the last month, we had a part on the generator go bad, and that's about 12,000, right, Brian?
14.
14. Fantastic. Wait for a sale. 14,000 for a part on the generator. We also had a water heater go bad that is over in the restaurant. It's leaking pretty bad. At any point it'll rupture. That's about a $12,000 repair. We're going to try to limp it into the new year. We'll see. We might get lucky and get it into the new budget year. If not, we'll have to take that on this year yet also. So continues to be just kind of a rough year in terms of stuff breaking, stuff happening, that kind of thing. But those things, I mean, unfortunately, that water heater, if you think about it, it's only 2014, which, you know, in the modern times, that's when a water heater lasts. But I think we all grew up with water heaters that were, you know, lasted longer than our pets. So, you know, it is what it is, I guess. So, let's see. We've cut our marketing expenses. That's one of the ways we're going to try to get the budget in, on target. We have tens of thousands of dollars in vehicle repairs from the snow season, and without Alaska seats coming up this summer, we'll probably have no problem filling the planes. So we've decided to scale back marketing. We'll still do some Facebook stuff over the next couple of months, but that's fairly inexpensive. Most of the out-of-market stuff that we normally do in Seattle and other places we're not going to do this year. So we're going to try to balance the budget with that cut in spending for the remainder of the year. On the project side, first thing I was going to show you guys, we've gotten our first renderings here for the West Concourse. So this image that you're looking at up on the screen is essentially standing at the kind of the union of where the family bathroom is in the new part of the terminal. So this is where the old checkpoint is many years ago, if you remember. Delta's gate is right on your right today. So you're kind of standing at Delta's gate looking down the hallway, and at the very far end is United's gate. So you can see gate 2 will swing from immediately to your right on that right side of the column, down the hall and into the new area. So essentially today, when you if you look down that hallway, all of those spaces that are half walls are walls, and there's nothing to the right. We're going to create all that space to the right. There are a series of handicap ramps. Why someone built the grades we built back in '75, I cannot tell you. But for whatever reason, they graded the gates lower down there at the end, so it takes 2 or 3 ADA ramps to get down to gate 1 level. That's why we have half walls instead of just being able to walk into there. There's a grade surplus on the hallway of about 3 feet, a little less than that, right there at the beginning of that half wall. And as you get down to where you can see that gate 2 sign near the column, we've got 2 steps in there to get you down into kind of a sunken living room hold room. Or if you keep going past the second half wall, you'll be at grade with the hold room. So the new hold room grade will be at the height of the podium. That's what's driving the continuation of that grade. The podium height where you get out onto the loading bridge is the control height, and so that's what we're going to build to, along with gate 1, which is also at that same height. We've got another rendering. This is just a different finish in there, kind of a darker finish on some of the walls, not substantially different. This is kind of the first image of the new area. So basically, here you are sitting today in United's expanded hold room. When you go down past that column, you can see where there's a little flag sign kind of in the middle of the page. That's the current gate 1. And we're going to swing the podium to the end wall so you can see it, so you're facing up the hallway. That gate wall today is kind of on the stairwell. When you're in gate 1, there's a stairwell that goes down below the loading bridge there. So this, you're kind of sitting next to the patio looking down United's area. You can see the new area that we're building will have that pitched roof, so we'll get even bigger windows, a little more light. Just kind of a nice architectural feature. We'll be wrapping the columns down there with something a little bit lighter than the concrete. But this is kind of the new expanded gate 1 area. So this hold room will have 200 seats. Today we're just under 100 in both hold rooms. So when you bring in that 150-seat Airbus, it gets pretty cramped down there at United. We have some additional seating that we've put down the hallway to try and help with that. But as you start getting away from the gate, you can't hear the gate pages. People get anxious about being that far from the gate podium, and so this will kind of bring everybody back into the hold room. This is an image looking the exact opposite way. So if you're standing down today where the gate 1 kind of starts, now you're looking out back up the hallway towards where you came from. And so in the United hold room, you can see in the kind of the back of the page to the left, there's the entry to the patio. Next to that's a little power counter. We'll get some benches there so you can plug in your stuff and kind of sit in that area. So this is kind of an image looking the other way. This is Delta's new gate, so this is a brand new gate. We're gonna abandon the current gate 2 and move it around the corner into the hallway. So this is 200 seats for Delta, assuming one day, which I think probably isn't very far off, they'll be upgrading Minneapolis. There are less regional jets than there used to be. Now the 50s are gone. I think it's entirely likely that we get one flight a day on a bigger plane, be that a 220. Which is 120 seats, or potentially an Airbus, which is 130 seats. We need to start gravitating towards having gates that can accommodate mainline aircraft. And so another 200-seat gate for Delta. You can see they have an elongated power counter down the side there. We're taking advantage of that half wall to create that long power counter. You can see some of the features in here. We get that nice tall roof line with huge windows on the outside, plenty of light coming in. You can see the roof's on a pitch there. And then Delta's new gate podium will be up against the door. They don't like their current location. They have a hard time seeing the door from where they are. This gate will be kind of interesting because it gives them the opportunity to allow everyone to exit the plane on the current ramp towards the center of the terminal, which they've indicated they would like to do. So their plan will be, rather than traipsing everybody through the hold room, which is already crowded, we have the ability on the other side with the existing door to let everyone out that side, clear the plane that way, and then open these doors to allow boarding. So that'd be kind of a nice feature, which I think they plan to take advantage of to allow passengers on one side to board without crowding through the people waiting for their upgrades and all those kinds of things. But a very nice hold room. This is a look from the gate podium, the new Delta gate podium, back down the hold room. You see we're going to have some new signage. You'll walk down towards the end of the hold room, then loop back and come up, which isn't the best flow in the world, but will work just fine. Another view, this is if you're kind of standing outside the patio, looking down Delta's podium to the left, kind of a hallway to the right. You can see the new signage components. We're going to have to put it in that space to get people going the right direction. How about that? There's our new deck.
Nice.
It's going to be very nice. We'll have some tables out there. You'll be able to go outside. It's covered, which is great. So for a snowy day, if you still want to go outside and spend a few minutes out there, you can. So that'll be kind of nice. We're going to have some heaters in there. We haven't settled on exactly what, but we'll run some heaters in there also. But I think it's going to be a really nice feature.
Can I smoke out there?
No, you cannot.
Why not?
Well, the vapor coming off those jets right there.
He promises not to flick the butts over the
Right.
railing.
Scream smoke lounge.
Yeah, that will be a problem.
Honestly looks like Lake Salt Lake. That one's really nice.
Yep, and kind of back to the beginning. So that's some early views of what we're working on down there in the West Concourse. Again, what will happen this year is we'll get the structural steel, we'll start the foundation work, and then next year we'll actually build out the project. So pretty exciting. That's going to really open up that area and kind of modernize that in keeping with the rest of the building. As I said last month, we can do the West Concourse or the East Concourse at another time. No immediate plans. Allegiant's fairly comfortable down there, and then Delta and Alaska's conjoined hold room there works out pretty well for the two of them to use that hold room. If there's a scheduling conflict, Delta can always use this other gate, which will be much bigger. So gate 2 is also getting a new loading bridge, as you recall. That loading bridge will be here about June, the end of June, and get that installed. So essentially an entirely new gate for Delta down there at gate 2.
Quick question on this one specifically.
Yep.
Are the finishes going to more or less match what's already in the main terminal area, or are you looking to kind of upgrade and modernize out there and then work back into?
A little bit of both. So in 14, we introduced some new finishes back in this area, in the new area back there. So this area will pick up a lot of those new finishes from 14, and then some of the new stuff that we did out front. Like you can see, we're going to a rusted signage color down there. We had some gray signage back in the hold rooms currently. We're going to go to a rusted palette, which is the new palette we picked up out front. So we'll start to make that transition. That tile you see right there, we've already used in the TSA checkpoint, and then on the ramps coming out of the airplane. There was so much damage to those walls. It was pretty incredible what TSA had done to those walls. I mean, just the radios leaning against the wall, they were almost through the drywall. So we hardened those walls with some wall tile, and we'll continue that kind of in this area. So, so a little bit of both. We've got some newer indoor finishes in here. You can see there's some metal panel and that type of stuff in the deck area. The ceiling structure for the panels that we're using is similar to the ticket counter, where it's the long panels instead of these 2x2s. Well, these are actually 4x2s made to look like 2x2s, but the new ones will be kind of 4x1s, so it'll be kind of a slatted looking ceiling. So most of the features that we're putting in down here, architectural features, will be similar to things we're already using, but there'll be some new stuff for back there, like the rusted signs. Some of the big overhead signs are already rusted back there, but a lot of the other signage is not. So as we get money and do things over time, we'll be moving those types of finishes throughout the rest of the building. The counters here, we're planning to use the same black that's throughout the secure area. That's worked out really well, those types of things. We're hoping we can find those benches again that we used in the rest of the hold rooms. Those were made by the Iowa prison system. Looks like they may not make those anymore. So, I don't know, maybe we can get a special order.
Has the supplier talked about any issues with getting equipment or supplies, any supply shortages, parts?
Not yet. You know, of course, I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen yet. But of course, this is a grant-supported project, so it's Buy American anyway. But if people can't buy American because of tariffs, then, or can't buy foreign because of the tariffs, then it's going to put pressure on Buy American. So we'll see. As of yet, we haven't heard anything. Let's see, other projects. The canopy back panels are in fact. Oh, look at that. I installed one right here. So you may recall when they ordered the plexiglass, they miscounted and didn't order 2 apexes for these areas here. And they've already installed this one. They'll be installing the next one down. And then we'll be done with the canopy roof. If I can see the guy right there. They must have just installed it. So we've got that, one more, and then we'll pretty much be done with the canopy. How'd you guys like the signs? I thought those turned out fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, they really light up nice. They're surprisingly bright. I was up here Friday morning early, and they really look terrific. So very happy with that. West vestibule, the sign is up over there, and the floor patch is done. I think the color looks fine. If you get a chance, stop by, and we've got it combed off. Just take a look in there and see what you think. But I think we'll probably check off on that and be done with the west vestibule, which is exciting. The snow removal expansion, we're having some discussions with FAA. It doesn't look like the crane is eligible, is what they're telling us. We hope to get a maintenance crane in there. Getting the broom heads off of those units is incredibly difficult. They're extremely heavy and they're 20-some feet long. So floor crane would sure help. So we're going to work with them a little bit more. We may be coming back to the board next month to fund that with reserves because we do want to get that crane in this phase. PFC application, the breach prevention system went all the way to headquarters. They are saying it's ineligible. They're not answering the questions we've asked. Specifically, we've asked, how is TSA responsible for the checkpoint when they're not here? When they've been gone for hours, you know, are you saying we're supposed to have them come back? The only thing we've gotten from FAA is that they are responsible for the checkpoint, period. You know, so I suppose that directive is we're supposed to tell TSA they have to send someone back up here at night to watch over the people exiting the checkpoint. It doesn't make much sense to me, but it does involve the federal government, so I think we've all given, I think that boat sailed a long time ago. Anyhow, our plan from there is likely that we're going to wait for the PFC application to be approved, which I expect is imminent, now that they have that answer. Once it's approved and we get going on collections, we'll probably come back and amend the terminal project that's in there to ask for more money for the local share of that project on the West Concourse, and then we'll take the local share and pay for the breach prevention system. So that's kind of the plan. Unfortunately, it's an indirect and kind of a silly way of doing things, but you would think since security and safety are both allowable costs under the airport improvement program, that it would be eligible. But apparently, we've gotten ourselves right square in the middle of a peeing match between a couple of federal agencies, so.
So when TSA is done screening passengers because the last flight has gone.
Yep, like today, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Right, so they're gone. According to the FAA, when another plane arrives, TSA is supposed to bring back an officer to observe the exit to verify that all passengers have exited the
So
airside.
what FAA has literally said is DHS is responsible for the exit lane, and that's all they've said. You know, so they're refusing to address the means and methods of what that means. I think our choices from here are to see if we can get one of the congressional delegation to force them to answer the question, because I think it's a valid question. I think it's one of those points in your life where you have some inflection and you realize what you're saying is nonsense. You know, but you know, we either do that and spin our wheels for a period of time, or we just amend the PFC application, take the PFCs, apply it to what we would pay for the local match on West Concourse, and then use that money to pay for the breach detection system. If I wanted to prove a point, I would probably do the option A. And we've got so many points to prove.
We just need to invite Sean Duffy for a visit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the minutia, right? I mean, we all talk about efficiency, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe there's a taxpayer here that's real interested in saving the 3% of our roof that's not eligible for federal grants. You know, that's the kind of stuff we're spending our time on, and we don't have controllers in our towers. We haven't modernized our air traffic control system. We have airports that have needs. You know, we can barely afford to pay the bills when a road's ineligible because we've got private access off of it that we don't control. You know, these are the things that make it very difficult to see how small airports are going to continue to serve the communities for another 30 years. You know, but that's lost in the shuffle of bureaucrats that, you know, that want to have territory and decide and tell people and make rules.
Duffy was talking about that actually this morning, about, you know, the air traffic controller situation and just all the updated system that needs to happen.
It's my entire career they've talked about it. And, you know, I just hit my 30th year last year.
John, have you had, to this point, any conversations with the delegation about this, or with some of the new folks in the delegation?
We have not approached the delegation yet. There's so many targets right now. We're trying to decide, you know, which ones we can remedy ourselves versus which ones, you know, we need help with. You know, this is one we can remedy ourselves, you know, that kind of the back way. There are tools that allow us to fix it for ourselves by simply paying what we were going to pay through PFCs and then taking that money and, you know, which, again, from a 10,000 foot view, just expresses the silliness of this entire argument. You know, but we don't get to make the calls. So.
Do you think there's room for a sort of striking while the iron is hot approach? It's like, while the new administration only just wrapped up their first 100 days, there's still some momentum for potentially some large changes in the normal way of doing business. This is a good example of how the normal way of doing business is harming us.
But even within that, there's so many examples, right? I mean, and so that's why we're kind of saving the ammo for the ones that can have a big impact. You know, like that roadway out there, we've got $500,000 or $600,000, $700,000 worth of ineligible work. You know, again, it's silly, you know, that they can come and measure out square feet of our terminal space and say, oh, well, 95% of a roof is eligible because you're leasing exclusive ticket counter space. The FAA's AIP criteria is explicitly, that program is for the movement of passengers and cargo. How many ticket counters would we lease if we didn't have passengers and cargo? None. You know, it's a necessary, just like a bathroom, it's a necessity to serve the public to have ticket counters. To take 3% of our terminal out, because it's multi-store, right? So we have to go and calculate each square foot on every floor, add it in the mix, and then draw the pie chart of what's eligible. To take 5% of our terminal and say it's ineligible on the roof, and then to turn around and say none of your road is eligible, even though 95% of your traffic is airport traffic, 98 probably, and maybe even 99 is airport traffic, to say none of the road is eligible because one person goes up there that isn't coming to the airport, that's ridiculous. And we've pointed out to the FAA in past letters that I could make every road ineligible in the entire country by just observing it. When the city dog catcher chases a dog up the road and is not going to the airport, ineligible. When there's a utility easement that crosses your property that the electric company has, and they're coming up to fix the line between two neighborhoods, ineligible. You know, I mean, you know, if you've leased a cell phone tower back there, ineligible. You know, so I mean, it's a ridiculous rule, and it's the game we play constantly. Jump in, Steve.
Yeah.
Don't get him started.
Every October, they tell us with the money that they give us, hey, you guys have got to spend this money we give it to you, because every time we recover it to the next year, it looks bad on us, and they're going to start reducing our funding. So we bring things like the crane, like the generator, all of these things that should be eligible, should be functional for the function of the airport to enhance security, safety, and capacity, and they tell us no. And then they can't tell us specifically why from their documents, their handbooks, their guidance, why it's ineligible. They reference a section. And so now you spend all this time looking at it, and you could rebuttal it 50 different ways. And they just always say, well, that's our decision. It's a no.
But in
So
their
it's more
mind,
just a judgment call of how you can't fight everything. So it's more just choosing the big fish where the juice is worth the squeeze, like the road, and just kind of knuckling under on the bigger stuff.
well, potentially, and then you step back from even that ring of the onion, and you look at what happened with employee screening. And we had, you know, I think it was 20 states in the end sign on to that letter and went to their delegations, and there were some powerful delegations. I mean, most of the appropriation committee was on there. And TSA just thumbed their nose at the congressional delegations and said, no, the airports are responsible for screening employees. Even though we've got it in our name, and we have the screening equipment, and so, you know, but they're gonna have to do it, and they've gotta buy the same equipment we already have. You know, there's no recurrent training, and exactly what I said would happen with that program happened. When you look at the airports that are doing employee screening now, the person that's doing that screening has fallen so far down the salary scale, you know, that you've got in many cases, you know, a person that doesn't have a lot of training. They don't have a fraternity of people they belong to, like TSA, where you're getting a badge with current training and, you know, all these things, or a police officer where you're rotating through different positions every day and doing different things to keep you from getting complacent. You know, and so that's what we've done. And so we're back to kind of the pre-9/11 level of security, right? Where we used to have, you know, just whoever came in that day from hitting the checkpoints. Now we're doing kind of the same thing with employee screening. And so we thought we had an excellent case to pause that and spend some time discussing what should happen, and we got nothing done. And so, you know, I just don't know, I mean, that we live in a world where these agencies are beholden to common sense.
Appreciate the insight.
That's gonna get out there.
Comment. Just observation I've made, John, is common sense is not all that common.
Yep. Hey, we don't need a found a youth, we found a smart.
All righty, anything else from the director?
Yep, got a few more. The snow removal went through that one already. PFC got that one. Okay, scheduling. We got a meeting we're trying to set up on the pre-application with the city to look at the TIF district expansion of those utilities. So once we get through approving the expenditure today, hopefully the funding source might ultimately be TIF proceeds, which would be great. There is enough capacity, it looks like, in the TIF to fund that next 650 of utilities. I think the biggest difficulty for the city is they don't like to do TIF projects until there's an imminent tenant. So that's a challenge because we don't really have an imminent tenant, but, and I can't judge the board, your willingness to do another condo building, but in my plan, in the next probably 6 months, we would come back to the board and say, hey, we'd like to do phase 2 condos. It feels like there's enough demand, and there's still no supply in the city. And so that's at least a project moving forward out there. And so we'll be meeting with the city here hopefully shortly to kind of go through the pre-application, and then we'll file an application and kind of see where that goes. Ultimately, we may or may not get that TIF funding. If we don't get the TIF funding, we're kind of at the end of the TIF rope. So we need to file a new TIF application, or entirely new TIF district. And then we would have to pay for those utilities anyway, because we don't have any new development to start filling the coffer with new property taxes. Because all the property taxes we've accumulated right now are in the existing TIF, so we don't get any credit for Loves or iState going forward if we file a new district, if that makes sense. So we'll do that pre-application and report back. We're waiting on a parking proposal from our vendor. You may recall last month we discussed our parking equipment is going to discontinue in 2027. We have a couple of options, one of which the vendor has expressed interest in buying back our equipment and giving us a proposal for a complete renovation of our parking system. It's a little premature. I would like to have gotten another 5 years out of our existing system, but that said, there are some new payment methods, on your phone, tap, that kind of stuff that we could potentially incorporate into our parking system if we made the change now. We do have a couple pieces of older equipment that we were hoping to replace one of them this year. And our ticket spinners, a couple of those are pretty old. So there is some benefit to transitioning. We'll just have to see what kind of money they're talking about. I've asked them to get us a proposal in the next 2 weeks so we can bring it to the main meeting if we decided we were going to go ahead with that. The other alternative would be to kind of buy some parts. It's going to get real difficult to get parts because they're going to discontinue the equipment. So we need to kind of back order a bunch of parts and stock some inventory there, and then wait it out 3, maybe 5 years. In that time period, we would do a new RFP to see what kind of other vendors there might be. There's a handful of vendors out there that do parking equipment. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are very complex, more for a bigger airport that has a lot going on. So we could see what's out there, kind of test the market and see what else we can get. So still waiting on that proposal. We should have more to report in May. And then Jumpstart, we're expecting our meeting our match of airlines that want to meet with us, whatever you call that, or speed dating agenda, I guess, that came in this week. So we'll see who has chosen to meet with us. I think I asked for 14 meetings. Typically we'll get 7, maybe 10 meetings. So we'll probably meet with the existing carriers. I would hope to meet with some of the new ultra low cost carriers. I think Breeze and Avello both signed up. Hope to meet with American and Southwest. We'll see where we are with those here in a couple of days. And that's all I have.
One more question for you, John. There was some good discussion last meeting about city fire and Mang and responsibilities up here. Has there been any progress, positive or negative on that?
No, I understand the fire chief's gonna reach back out to us for another meeting, so hopefully we'll have something that we can discuss.
All right. So I guess we'll move on to item number 1, the SRE bid acceptance.
Yes, we did get bids on the SRE since the last meeting. Steve, do you wanna maybe go over those? Yeah. We are within budget, that's the good news.
Yeah, so we received 2 bids on the SRE building expansion project. Both bid packages were responsive. The low bid was Oswood Construction Company at, for the base bid schedule at $1.95 million. Sorry. And then, I believe, the second bid that came in was, Detailed Construction Company, and they were about 300,000 higher than that. It was, I think, 2.23 was for the base bid. Both the additive and alternates for the bridge crane and the generators were within 10,000 on each other. I think they were, I printed them off, I've got them here somewhere, but, apologize.
I've got them here.
You got them there.
Yeah, the low bid on the bridge crane was $140,000, and then $240 for the generator on the parent low bid. And I think, as I said before, the FAA is currently, their position is that neither of those is eligible. So we'll likely come back to the board potentially and ask for local funds to do the bridge crane. The generator will wait for another day. I think what we might do there is just see if we can't find a Generac local vendor and see what kind of solutions they could offer. We don't need to power a ton on that building. If we could get basically to emergency lighting and door openers, the key is the door openers because those are huge doors. So if we could get to that, that would be enough for us to operate out of that building during a 3 or 4 day power loss, which we've been pretty fortunate down at that end. We rarely get power outages because almost all the lines are underground. Up here, there's still some overhead lines, and it's been better. But when probably the first half of my time here, we were losing power over there several times a year. Usually not for very long, but I've got one resident over there. You've seen the power out.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've touched base with both contractors, specifically Oswood Construction Company. We've checked preliminarily their dimensions on their structure because there was some question as to whether we'd get the 3 30-foot bays or not from pre-manufactured building suppliers, and they confirmed that as well. So their base bid at 1.95 is responsive.
So we request that the board just accept the bids. That's a normal function we do when we bid the projects, just in case there were a public complaint about the bid or vendors thought our plans weren't clear or something like that. Gives them an opportunity to come up and say something.
So we're accepting both bids?
Yeah.
We're not picking one?
Well, we have an apparent low bidder, so we would pick the low bid assuming that we get through all the contractual obligations of getting them all the way to signing a contract. So, we accept both bids, this is what they said, so we have an apparent low bidder. We've had 1 or 2 where where a non-low bidder comes in and says that number's too low, you're not gonna be able to do it for that. So that's why we have these kinds of meetings, in case, somebody would wanna come in and say that you know, there's a subcontractor there that isn't gonna get their work done for that amount of money, and we're gonna end up paying more, so it might be cheaper.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll have something like that.
Okay. So I would accept a motion.
I move to approve acceptance of the Detail Construction Company and Oswood Construction Company bids.
Excellent. All righty. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. So I have a first and a second motion. Any discussion? All righty. All those in favor of the motion of accepting the two bids, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. All right, Terminal West Concourse bid acceptance.
In a similar, similar note, the Terminal West Concourse, we have gone out and working, this is a project where we're working directly with Dick Anderson through a general contractor at risk type of proposal. We've received a proposal for the year, which is in the packet here. As you can see, they're looking for a guarantee, they're proposing a guaranteed minimum, maximum price of $1,817,182, which is within engineer's estimate. So we're actually a couple $100,000 low, aren't we?
Yes, it was low.
Yeah, and so that's encouraging. The first phase of this project is we're gonna buy the structural steel this year. We're gonna get the foundation walls. We have worked out with Dick Anderson, they're gonna use a prefab wall, which I'm really encouraged by. I think that's a construction technique that could really benefit us going forward. And so I thought, given what the challenges we had down there, that would be a good way to go, and we have replaced it, and it's cheaper than building it on site. So we're gonna get prefab walls, and we're gonna put those in place. It'll be basically a concrete sandwich with insulation in the middle. So it'll be concrete on both sides, so whenever somebody bashes a piece of equipment into them downstairs, it will be able to, take it without, without damage. I can show you some holes down there in our new building from last year. This will be, I think, a really good opportunity for us to incorporate that building technique and get going on this project. So this project will get basically the basement built out, basement metal built out, we'll get the structural steel. We don't have the windows in this package. Oh, you do have the windows in there?
And the fireproof.
And the fireproofing. And so then next year we'll construct basically the remainder of the project.
So this is the 1.8 million of a $6 million project.
Yep, exactly. It's the first phase. And we wanted to get this package out and get it funded, just because we know those bill dollars, anything can happen. So if we can kind of get through that first bill, so also with the inflationary increases we're gonna see, get through that first round of bill and use up all the money we have available this year, that puts us in a better position to complete the project next year.
Okay. Any questions from the director?
I'll note that there is I think it's a typo on page 14. It says, it's on the bottom of the page, bid package 07-4, light fireproofing. Subcontractor name, it says Advanced Fire Proofing.
Oh, yes.
There's
Not
a
that
couple
it might
we've
not go
already had them
outside.
clean up.
It might not go outside of this room, but
That's
just
a new technique.
pointing that out. Fire proofing.
Yeah, we've had them clean up some other things up there too, so. Apologize.
Would you note that, Steve, and let them know?
Yep.
So, I just noticed that they're only listing one subcontractor. Is that, this is the low bid of the subcontractors, or they're only getting one bid?
No, well, in some cases, they may only get one bid. So working with them at risk, they're trying to deliver the project for the best, value they can. And so, they're incorporated right into the design. So a lot of times we'll get from them, actual design comments that we can incorporate in the design that make it easier to build. And so, sometimes, they'll tell us there's only one fireproofer. We had a long discussion about that. I really wanted open ceiling in that pitch section. But, they go back to basically one fireproofer and say, how can we fireproof this? And the feedback is, it's gonna be exceptionally expensive because you're gonna have to use a special paint. And so then they come back to us and say, you know, it's a cost increase. And so we get the benefit, even though we're not in direct control of kind of bidding every single thing. You're really not when you bid it a master contract anyway, right? I mean, in that case, they usually have one guy that they're talking to. Here, they've gone out in some cases to 2 and 3 different people and said, well, what would your price be for this? What would your price be for that? And then they come back with the best price and that they can get. Sometimes it may not be the cheapest, but it's a contractor they trust to get the work done the way they need it done. So it's a different bid strategy. The value, what you're basically trying to create value by incorporating the contractor into the actual building documents so that you get their feedback about what's buildable, what's cheaper, and what'll save you money. And I think the precast is a great example. You know, I kind of came to them with this idea. You know, I didn't hear anything for months, and I'm like, you think I'm really stupid or something. But they had done a lot of groundwork behind the scenes and gotten a hold of somebody, found the product, came back and said, you know what, I think actually we can deliver it cheaper. You know, so I mean, that's the benefit, is you're actually using the contractor for that research, and they're bringing back ideas on how to get the price down. So very early on, we set a very aggressive budget with them. We said, we gotta get to this somehow. You guys are gonna tell us how to get there. And I think they've done an excellent job of creating value in that partnership.
And under this scenario, it's a team situation too, so they actually went out and got pre-qualified subs. So on here, on the bid, you'll see True North as the steel and the precast. They actually went through a qualifications process and advertised for that, and then they interviewed. So that's why they can accept only that bid from True North for those documents. And everything on that work is less than the estimated original. So it's a really good team partnership, and it's working really well. So, and it'll save us money on the back end too with general conditions because our schedule, we don't have to wait so long when we do the submittals. So
the other value you get too is we don't press the bids all the way into 100% design and then bid it. I mean, when you think about the cost of the design team, we're taking that up to say a 60% design, and the contractor's already involved. You know, so when you get to final design, you know, you're not bidding, you're not taking that time. You know, you've already incorporated the contractor's feedback, so you know it's a buildable project.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
I motion to approve the Dick Anderson Construction Terminal West Concourse bid.
I second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. So we are at the commercial vehicle permit.
Over the last year or so, we've gravitated back up to historical levels of passenger traffic, kind of recovering from COVID, and what we're seeing is the curb front is kind of back to very busy, particularly during peak times like last week, spring break, Christmas time, and those types of things. And adding to the madness down there, we have quite a few commercial vehicles. I actually found one parked unattended yesterday, and when I went out there, they did have a sign in the dash, but I'm not sure that's where we want them parking, is right on the curb. You know, and so, you know, those are the kinds of behaviors we're trying to curb. We need to have a general conversational relationship with people that are using the terminal building and the roadways for commercial business. So the taxi cabs, the shuttle vans that come from the hotels, the cargo delivery services, whether that's, you know, blood or whatever they're dropping off, you know, chickens, you know, those types of things that are coming and going in and out of the building. We don't really know who these people are. In some cases, we don't know how to recognize them. I found one van out there unloading people at Christmas time that didn't have any placards on them. I had to actually ask them who they were, you know, and so we need to tighten that up some. And so
Deliveries of live chickens here
Oh, yeah.
at the airport?
tons of thousands. don't, they come from Oregon, I've
What's the
heard.
price of eggs?
No, we've always had them.
Really?
Yeah, little tiny babies, like this big, and they come in giant flats with like air holes in them.
North Forty.
Yeah,
things like that.
And some of them, but they seem to go to a lot of colonies. I'll see like vans picking them up.
They
Yeah.
come in like in the bottom of the plains.
Yeah, they fly in the bottom plane, so I think they come when it gets warm enough that they won't freeze, you know, and so then, like, the next couple of weeks, there's tons of chickens down, sometimes when you walk through the baggage claim, you hear noises, you're like, what is that noise? And there'll be a giant flatted chicken maybe, so.
Okay. Well, as you carry on.
We had an interesting experience when we left the meeting last time. So we were, a couple of us were standing out in the parking lot looking at the little condos over here. And a car with a little old lady was coming down the wrong
Wrong way.
direction. And she flips a U-turn,
Yeah,
right? And we didn't know if she had been that way and didn't get a spot. And so Cameron's leaving and we're all just standing there like, what is happening?
yeah.
And she
Then she
parked
parked the car
and
at the
she was
curb,
gonna go
locked
in
it,
and
locked
Cameron
into the
pulls
turn.
up, tells her, you can't
Facing
park
that
here.
way?
No, she
No, she
drove, she
turned her-
entered
she
the
got
wrong
around.
way,
Yeah.
U-turned, parked in front
There
of
was
it,
cars
locked her
coming
car
at her,
back.
honking, and we're just going, what is happening? So it was fun.
Yeah, there are some interesting ones. Yeah.
This is where you need your flatted chickens.
Mhm.
You could just, instead of ticketing them, you could just turn a flatted chickens loose inside their car. And call it chicken karma.
In any event, what we want to do with this commercial permit is primarily form a relationship with these folks, get their insurance information, so if they have an accident or if they create damage to one of our buildings, we've got a way to contact their insurance, and then charge them a $300 fee a year. The fee is primarily nominal, just so that we can kind of formalize an agreement with them. Our fee will be the lowest of the commercial airports. I think right now, the only airports that don't have an agreement are Helena and Billings. They're not, Helena probably just isn't busy enough yet, and for whatever reason, Billings just doesn't have one, but the other ones all have one. And this is largely taken from a composite of the two of those existing agreements, or Kalispell and Missoula's existing agreements. So that's what we're trying to do. We're gonna be getting in touch with all the different companies and having them put these on file so that we have them in the office.
There's a typo on page 25.
You are
Article 3,
amazing.
fees and time of payment. I have to prove ballots, man, this is like right up my alley. Last sentence, Laura, failure of pay, I think that's either to pay, yeah.
I am just impressed that we could take something as innocuous as a one-page form of who are you, your phone number, and your insurance, and turn it into 6 pages. I mean, how did we do that?
ChatGPT.
I mean, I just thought it was, who are you, what's your insurance, and how do I call you? And pay me $300.
Yeah.
Wow. I looked at that and that was just, wow.
Well, you know, you've got this whole page is required federal disclosures that you can't discriminate. You know, so there's one whole page of it.
All right. Item C, let's go down. Under operations. I think it looks like it's still on page 25.
We don't have pages, so what?
Oh, so it's I'm not,
It's Article
it's
4.
1, operations. And then, maybe that was my spot. Item C. It is vital to public safety that operators' driver's license shall at no time park it in. There's, in is kind of twice, it's
Okay.
in the word park, and then it follows it.
Got it.
Then the other thing we want to do is assign some parking spots and give them a little exhibit so they know where they can park.
Well, I'm amazed at the editing skills. Commissioner Thompson, amazing. And the total encompassing aspect of this agreement. So congratulations, airport staff, that's just amazing. So, any other questions or comments? All right, so we have a motion.
I move to accept the agreement as written with such corrections as Commissioner Thompson highlighted for use by the record.
Excellent. We have a first
Second.
and a second. Excellent. Any other suggestions, Commissioner Thompson?
Not that I can see at the moment, sir.
All right. Well, a first and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the commercial vehicle permit, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Excellent. Upper and lower shop rate increases.
Yes, we have no vacancy in any of our buildings currently. Every square foot that we have is leased. In particular, the Great Falls Market is extremely short on small industrial space, and that's really the impetus of the condos, is creating some small spaces for business. But we're about to have another half of our lower shop open that we can lease once we move our snow equipment, our remaining snow equipment up to the expanded shop. And so we thought it would be a good time to go back and look through the rates. We think we've been at $5 on the existing snow buildings for a number of years now. The market has moved on, and we think it's time to update those rates as we can. Some of the leases have specific times that we can do that. One of them is just month to month, so we can do that immediately. But we'd like to set the rate on our existing snow buildings, both upper and lower shops, at $5.25 for the current rental rate, and we'll make that transition as the lease allows.
Okay, so just a 25 cents a square foot.
Yep, just 25 cents more a square foot.
I want to commend you, John, and the airport staff for tremendous increase in revenue of our land and assets the airport has, not including the airport, or air traffic passengers. It's, in the time I've been associated with the airport, the increased revenue from the development of property and other assets the airport owns has just been tremendous, and that's all been because of the hard work of you folks. So, the fact that we have all of our assets leased and generating revenue is incredibly impressive. So, thank you for that. Any comments or discussions on the rate increase?
I would move to increase the rental rate on the upper and lower shop to $5.25, and for approval to work with the current tenants towards an amendment on the upper shop for future renewals, and a letter of agreement for the lower shop.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Excellent. So we have a first and a second. Any additional comment? All righty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Capital project, utility extensions to the SRE stubs.
Yeah, so we, when we built the condo building last year, we brought utilities across the frontage road, which was prudent at the time, rather than going all the way down to the stubs and dragging them back, because it's nearly a quarter mile. And so now we want to extend those new stubs up to the stubs that existed when we put in the SRE building back in 2015. That will loop the water line that feeds the Eagle Jet. It will create some benefits even for the jail to have that water line so they can circulate it. They can turn down half of it if they want to maintenance the other half. So there's a lot of benefits to having that looped. I know the city would like it looped. So we're planning to do that with this project. It also opens up about nearly 25 acres of developable land, including the phase 2 condos. So this, as this extends up the frontage road, as we extend this project up the frontage road, you kind of see here, this little piece of disturbed land is where we brought the utilities across many years ago. This phase one condos set here. So we'll be bridging that distance with the new water line. In talking to the city last week, there's some discussion over what size water line. We brought 16 inches to here. As you may know, our one tenant that we're working with for phase two has multiple 30,000 gallon water tanks that they use in their operation, which is a plenty of water. In addition, as we talked to the city last week, we gave them a drawing that kind of shows eventually the terminal, is scheduled to be, I don't have drawings out that far. Oh, yeah. So eventually the terminal is scheduled to be out here. And so in order to get there, you have to go all the way around the end of the existing runway. So essentially out around this way, all the way out to here. There's no benefit really to extending this water line that feeds the current GA area because we're running out of room. We're starting to get in the flight path over here. So as we expand this area, which now Eagle Jet sits right about here, we can get 2 more Eagle Jet sized hangars in, but that's the end of the road. The next Eagle Jet hangar can actually use the same foam system as the existing one. They built that with enough capacity that basically the same foam system sits between the 2 buildings and can be used for that foam, so for that second hangar. So it doesn't need more water. It's kind of a freebie. The existing humongous water pipes that feed the Eagle Jet are enough to feed the second hangar. The third one would require more water. But nonetheless, we have about as much water capacity as we ever need here. We can't develop here because we're in what's called the runway protection zone, which we really can't do anything. The FAA from time to time has allowed parking in there. I think they're kind of away from that again. I don't know, Brian, if you've tried that recently.
Yeah, they're not allowing it.
Yeah, again, it kind of swings back and forth. But nonetheless, the water line makes more sense to continue on this side of the road because we own another 2 miles past these stubs that came across with the snow building. So keeping the big water line, 16-inch water line, all the way down that 2 miles, and then taking a branch off that sweeps around our vacant property at the runway and makes the most sense. Because on the other side of that runway, we own some land that is developable out past the flight path. And so we're trying to convince the city that a 16-inch extension makes the most sense. Obviously, the bigger the water line, the more maintenance it takes, replacement costs more. But the last thing you want to be is wrong about the size of the pipe because then digging it up and replacing it's not fun either. So we're working with the city on that. We think it makes the most sense to go ahead and get those utilities done as quickly as we can. Ideally, when we meet with the city on the TIF application, we'll be able to use TIF funds for that. If we can't use TIF funds, our TIF district that exists now is expiring anyway. We're running out of capacity. There's very little capacity left on it. Enough to do this, but not much more. And in addition, once the current debt pays off that we use to extend the utilities to phase 1 condos, we can't use the district at all anymore. It has sunset in terms of years. So it will expire. On top of all of that, the type of TIF that it is doesn't even exist anymore. So under state law, we would be under a different type of TIF. So it makes sense to continue forward with a new TIF application once we've kind of depleted this fund so that future phases of development begin paying a property tax into that new TIF so we can continue to extend. Obviously, 2 more miles of utilities is a lot of utilities, so we have a long development curve ahead of us. As I told the city last week, when they asked, well, do you have a master plan for this site? I said, well, 300 acres of commercial and light industrial in the city of Great Falls is literally a lifetime of development at the growth pace we're at. So no, there is no master plan. A lot depends on what will ever become of Great Falls. And so, that is a lot of industrial space, light industrial, commercial type space. So this is a big step forward, to get 25 more acres for us right now. We have, we don't have that much development. Really, when you look at all the development we've done in 15 years, it's about 25 acres. So, that should be a good stepping stone for the next phase of development. I think at least 5 or 10 years of development right there. We are working with a number of fairly serious tenants that could fill that space relatively quickly. But of course, we're lending costs are high right now. You know, we may be on the edge of a recession again. It's hard to say what the economic future holds. So, you know, this investment, I think, you know, like I said, enables the phase 2 condos. It creates another 25 acres of developable land ready with utilities. Flat level land with the interstate access that it has, I think is valuable. Having that parcel ready to go is really important. A lot of the calls we get are looking to build this year. You know, they want to go right now. Not having a utilities solution is a hindrance to that. Whereas if we can get some utilities done, we can say, yeah, it's ready to go now, and all you need is your plan, and let's get to the city and start talking about permitting. And so I think it's a good step forward, and it costs about $650,000 to do this utility loop for that quarter mile. But I think it's an investment worth making. And as I said here, we're recommending that we go ahead and file the application for the TIF right now with the existing TIF. If the city were to say no, then we would immediately refile for a new district and pay for this with reserves that we have to, because we won't have any taxes that we can use to fund the TIF, the expansion, if we can't do this expansion.
So if we get rejected on the existing TIF, file a new one, spend the $650,000, at some point when that TIF has deposits into it, would we be able to try and get reimbursed, or is that $650 just a sunk cost?
No, it used to be you could do reimbursements, but the city really doesn't allow that anymore. They want to see your plan up front, and they want you to get it approved at the time. So yeah, we would be sunk that cost. But if the application isn't approved under this anyway, we're going to be sunk the cost either way, because that district will expire as soon as that debt's repaid. So we have like another 2 years, and then that's going to sunset anyway. So we won't have the ability to put anything else on the current TIF. So we'll have to build up the property tax again, which could go relatively quickly. I mean, it's not unthinkable that we could put a hotel, you know, out along that interstate, right? That's where, you know, I think every airport in the state has an airport hotel except us. Helena has one that's on airport land. You may have stayed at Glaciers. They have a nice little hotel there. Billings doesn't have one, so they might be the only one. Then Missoula, there's, I think, 2 out in that industrial park right at the airport there. And then Bozeman now, there's something like 6 under construction in Belgrade. I mean, it's crazy how many hotels are right there at the airport.
So I guess my question is what incentivizes the city commission to approve our TIF application?
My charm and the hope of future development. I mean, the TIF applications, the purpose of them, right, as a community, we're infrastructure poor, right? I mean, you know, that is our problem. You know, we're not seeing 300-400 homes being built in the development because we don't have infrastructure for the development. So the TIF districts are a tool that you can use in order to help pay for that infrastructure. So basically, we're going to build this pipe and the sewer and the other infrastructure, and then all of the city utilities, water and sewer, get handed over to them for free. So they get an extension. So one of the things that when I talked to the city planning last week, I said, well, you know, I don't know what your growth plan says about Gore Hill, you know, but it's as Dick Anderson says, the most buildable ground in the entire city because we sit up on the rock here. And you know, having infrastructure moving down your interstate in most cities would be a tremendous asset because most cities develop down the interstate, right? I mean, you know, my hometown had 1 exit, now it has 3. You know, in Ohio, that's kind of how cities go. You know, you see that sign right out front. You know, blank city, next 6 exits. You know, that's how they develop. And so, for us to be able to move these major utilities down the interstate, you know, should have some eventual benefit to the city. My understanding is the growth plan doesn't really envision anything up on Gore Hill. Part of that is because of the airport impacts. You know, they're concerned that, you know, it would be noise or, you know, those types of things. But we own the entire noise profile that's incompatible under FAA standards right now. So the 65 DMLs, it's called the night average, is all on our property. As we move forward with newer and newer planes, with the exception of FedEx, we'll continue to fly older planes, and they have penalty hours because they fly late, they fly early. With the exception of that, all the airplanes that are serving us are getting quieter and quieter. I haven't really seen the noise profile from J, but I suspect it's much quieter than the H models at C-130 we have now. So planes are getting quieter and quieter, which means the incompatibility is growing, is shrinking, and so there might be potential for residential development eventually along the interstate up here that would be very compatible. So if you look at how our runway in actually points, we align with the interstate quite nicely. So, once the planes leave, they follow that interstate corridor pretty well. There isn't a whole lot of bending back to the right into those residential areas that have been built way out on cisterns. Most of that flight path would be compatible. So yeah, I mean, I think there's the benefits to the city are getting the utility lines moving down the interstate, maybe for future development. More property tax because this is a relatively small amount of money, and so once this bond is repaid, the I-State goes into the city coffer along with Love's, Holman's new fuel farm, Eagle Jet. Seems like I'm forgetting somebody. Peterbilt, if they build their own building, that goes into it too. So there's a lot of new property tax that will come into the city. Appreciate it.
All righty. Any other questions? Anybody like to make a motion?
I move to grant authorization to design and install a utility extension along the frontage road for cost not to exceed $650, with the understanding that staff will be filing that TIF application.
Excellent.
Do we need to add on to the motion that if the application is declined, then we authorize you to use reserves?
Yes, I would like that.
Amending my motion to add that in the event that TIF funding is not received, giving the director authorization to fund the project with reserves and to file a new TIF application.
Okay, so the motion is to apply for the existing TIF of $650,000. If that's denied, use the $650 from reserves and apply for a new TIF. Did I summarize that accurately?
That is my motion.
Excellent. We have a second. Any discussion further? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All righty, so that passes. So we're down to Airport Authority comments. Go to the left. Commissioner Thompson.
I have no further edits.
All righty. Commissioner Swafford. Commissioner Jacobs. I have none either. Would the public like to speak?
May I?
Commissioner Susan,
Okay.
please.
Would you like me, can I just stay here, or do you want me to come somewhere else?
You would be fine, oh, I don't know. Can she stay? Okay. I
Okay,
didn't know
thank
if I had that latitude.
Okay,
I still don't have my gavel, by the way. I'll use my coffee cup.
there you go.
Yes, please speak.
So I'm just going to speak, perhaps at a city commission level, but also from a past experience level. When you're talking about working with people and having pre-made walls and structures brought in from somewhere else, we did that both, and we used the GCCM, General Contractor, Contract Manager process for the dental hygiene building at Great Falls College MSU. And that was tremendous to have all of those professionals working together from day one, because it was during COVID and we had roof panels that arrived that didn't fit the building. And now my phone's gonna ring, but just never mind. But, so they all worked together. They sat outside in the winter time and they reconfigured and made that work. It would have been very, very difficult to do that if we had these separate entities trying to do that project. And then also the new Shields Aim High Big Sky Recreation Center, that was, I don't know how many different walls, 36 different walls that were trucked in here that were, I think, manufactured over in Missoula.
Correct.
And then, I mean, that building went up so quickly. So I just want to commend you for approaching this project that way, because I've seen that benefit twice. So I guess I'm speaking of that, and then,
I love the patterns on the
Isn't that
precast you
fun?
guys got on
Yeah.
that building, really nice.
right,
Get a chance
the
to
wave
check out
patterns,
those walls.
yeah, patterns, and then also the new water treatment plant building, the solid mitigation building, the same thing is, that looks like it's a brick, I'm gonna say a brick stick built building, but it's not, it was stand-up walls that were brought in, looks like brick to match all the other facilities. And again, it was that whole process, and I was involved in choosing the engineer for that, so I commend you, for that work, so, thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments from the public? All righty. With no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. All right, so we take a 5-minute break, which means come back in 15.
At one point, I was active duty, I had to go to school in Alabama.